If you've ever felt like classics are only for brainy people, or if you've tried to read the books that everyone says you should read and you've bounced right off of them, this video is for you. I'm going to try to debunk what I think are the biggest myths about classics and give you a strategic roadmap for actually enjoying them. Hi there, I'm Anna and this is Tucker, and we hope you're having a great day. This is the fourth video in my Reading Help series. Over the past few weeks, I've covered rebuilding your reading brain after illness or injury, becoming addicted to reading when your brain is used to screens, and getting out of reading slumps. Next week, I'll be adding my last video in this series, Reading Strategies for Non-Native English Speakers. Today, we're tackling classics, how to approach them without intimidation, and how to actually have a good time. I think the biggest misconception is actually twofold, like opposite sides of the same coin. One, that classics are only read by brainiacs or intellectuals, so they're inaccessible to the general population. And two, that you're automatically super smart if you read classics. I don't really think that either of these things are true, the way they sound anyways. Anyone can read classics. You just have to be strategic about it in the beginning. And you gotta remember, dumb people read classics too. But you shouldn't feel dumb if you've tried to read must-reads and you've stopped because you didn't get it. The fact that you want to add classics to your reading repertoire is evidence of your intelligence and of your sophistication. Before we talk about how to read classics, let me blow your mind for a couple of minutes. You've probably already experienced way more classics than you realize. Have you seen the movie Clueless? That's Jane Austen's Emma, a direct adaptation, not just inspired by. What about the movie 10 Things I Hate About You? It's one of my personal favorites. That is Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew. She's All That? That's Shaw's Pygmalion. The Lion King? That's Hamlet. Simba is Hamlet. Scar is Claudius. And Mufasa's ghost is Hamlet's father. Every time you grab a coffee at Starbucks, you're referencing Moby Dick. The company is named after Starbuck from that novel. Nike? Greek goddess of victory. The most recent Hunger Games prequel has tons of Poe references, specifically the Raven and Lenore. Lost, the TV series, was packed with philosopher names. John Locke, Danielle Rousseau, Charlotte Lewis after C.S. Lewis. Even modern books you love probably have classical DNA woven throughout. Now, you could certainly enjoy all of these things without knowing the original sources, and that's totally fine. But here's what you're missing. When you know the source material, you get the inside jokes, the deeper layers, the conversations creators are having with literary history. The Hunger Games prequel becomes so much richer when you understand the Poe connections. It's not about being pretentious. It's about unlocking extra enjoyment from things you already love. So, why should you bother with the originals? Personally, I believe that classics are basically the only true time machines that exist. Most classics are portals into previous time periods because they were written by people who actually lived at that time. This differs from historical fiction because while I love historical fiction, it's just a guess. An educated guess, but a guess nonetheless. If you really want to know what it was like, you have to go to the source. And you're not just traveling back in time. You can go to different parts of the world as well. Classics tend to reveal more about life and the human psyche than a lot of modern novels do. Those authors, they were pioneers, not afraid to speak their truth. It's like getting a story and a history lesson all at the same time. And science fiction classics are particularly fascinating for me. What did they get right? I mean, Jules Verne. Are we sure he didn't actually figure out how to time travel? And then went back in time and wrote it all down and was like, yeah guys, I'm just super good at looking at trends and guessing. I mean, it's too good. Reading classics gives you cultural literacy. You'll understand more references, get more jokes, and join conversations that are happening all around you. Plus, they can be incredibly enriching and they can definitely make you feel smart, which is a great benefit. The key to enjoying classics is starting at the right level for you. Think of this like building any other skill. You wouldn't want to start weightlifting with the heaviest weights, and you shouldn't start classics with the hardest books. Absolute beginner level. This is for people whose middle and high school just completely skipped classics in their curriculum for some reason. This is not because your intelligence or your sophistication is in question, I promise. The reason I suggest starting here is because you'll get used to the older vernacular, the styles of writing, vocabulary, and grammar structure. Yes, it really is that different, with plots that are easier to follow and books that are generally shorter. So good novels to consider here are Call of the Wild or White Fang by Jack London, The Secret Garden, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, or The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I'll list all of these books down in the description box below if you aren't able to catch them. Moderate level. This is for people who read some classics at some point in the past. You probably don't have to go back that far as an entry point. You need the next level. I recently listened to Dracula on audiobook, and let me tell you, 80% of that book sounded like it was written in modern times. So that would be a great starting point here. You could also try A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I know, it's kind of an odd choice, but I think it's easily his most accessible book, difficulty-wise. There's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, if you want romance, Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne, or Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. There's actually a lot of ground in this moderate section, and you could happily explore it for a very long time. I think a lot of 20th century classics fall into this zone. To Kill a Mockingbird, The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, The Bell Jar, A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway, Catch-22, The Hobbit, The Great Gatsby, 1984, Lord of the Flies, Brave New World. The novels in this category aren't as hard in the grammar and vocabulary areas because modern writing hasn't changed as much. A lot of these books are also in people's what I would call living memory, so you can ask someone who's a little older than you for some context if you want. Most of these books require minimal research, if any. This is actually where a majority of high school book lists fall, so you can be confident that if an average 15-year-old is expected to understand a book, you're good. Here's a perfect example of why this moderate level works so well with just a tiny bit of context. When I read To Kill a Mockingbird alongside my daughter this spring, she seemed a little bit lost at first. I asked her if her teacher had given her a short background on the time and place before they started reading. And she kind of looked at me like I was completely nuts to suggest such a thing. And I realized, you're not oriented properly. I got you. Then I gave her the very basics about the 1930s in the South, how racism and segregation were very much alive, especially in backwoods Alabama. I also gave her some basic information about when the book was written, during the Civil Rights Movement, which she learned about after reading this book. I don't know why. It took maybe 5-10 minutes tops, and it really helped her understand far more of the story. She got much more into it, and it was actually a really enjoyable read for her overall. Advanced level, or the research required books. Here's where I would put Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights, some other Dickens novels like Great Expectations or A Tale of Two Cities, David Copperfield, Oliver Twist. I also think that Edgar Allan Poe fits here. They're challenging, but not impossible. Do some cursory research. read the back cover synopsis. If there's a time period you're unfamiliar with, look it up. If there are words you don't understand, get a dictionary handy. If there are historical figures or systems of government that you never learned about, that's okay too. Look it up. Keep a notebook handy and take a few basic notes at the end of each reading session. There is no shame in doing a little bit of research. I know this sounds like work, and it kind of is, but it's the good kind. It's the kind that shows we're continuing our education throughout our adult lives, but it's way different than it was in school. Don't associate this with whatever happened to you in school. This is at your own pace and you're not being graded. Your only grade is how satisfied you feel at the end of the novel. And that's the best metric of all. Last level, what I'm calling the self-taught classics degree level. These are the ones that intimidate even people who read classics regularly. Ulysses, War and Peace, Moby Dick, Crime and Punishment, Les Miserables, Anna Karenina. I haven't tackled any of these myself, and honestly, in my current state after my brain injury, attempting any of these would quite literally send me into a health tailspin. So, stay away from those. But if I ever do feel ready someday in the very far off future, I'll use the same strategic approach. Research first, take a few notes, and go slow. There is no shame in knowing your limits. How do you know you're ready to move up a level? Well, you can finish a book in that level and you got through it feeling confident. You weren't sitting there rereading pages because you got a little confused, which, by the way, is totally normal. It's just that people rarely admit this. Remember, supposedly, only smart people who are cultured and know everything already read classics. Wink, wink. I can't wink. Sorry. Reading the last book felt like a breeze. It was enjoyable and it felt easy peasy. You didn't have to look up deeper meanings or plot points, either because you understood it all or because you didn't realize there were other subplots, but you felt satisfied with the read anyway. I know, that's a bit of a chicken and the egg concept, but I think you catch my drift. Signs a book is too advanced. You don't understand the first chapter. Your phone has the dictionary.com tab open right next to you at all times. You're Googling, what did X say to Y in C book on page 8? The key is to build confidence, similar to building up your dopamine. You're building a specific reading muscle now, the classics reading muscle. Do not, I repeat, do not start with poetry or Shakespeare. They are notoriously hard. Poetry is an entirely different beast, and one that I can't help you with. Poetry is really hard for me too. As you move beyond beginner classics, it becomes helpful to do a little research before diving in. For something like A Tale of Two Cities, if you're not familiar with the French Revolution, take a quick look at the Wikipedia page so you're oriented to the time frame, the basic sides of the conflict, and the general conditions of the time and place. This isn't cheating, it's setting yourself up for success. Focus on the time period, basic conflicts, and general conditions. Don't spoil the plot or read academic analysis yet. Keep it basic, just enough context to understand the world you're entering. Here's what I want you to remember. Classics aren't intimidating academic exercises. They're stories written by people who wanted to share something important about their world and their time. You've already been experiencing classics through movies, TV shows, and modern books. And now you get to discover the originals and unlock all the hidden connections. Start at your level. Be strategic about your choices and don't feel pressure to understand everything perfectly. Your only goal is to enjoy the journey and maybe learn something along the way. Join me next week for reading strategies for non-native English speakers. And I'd love to know, have you tried reading classics before? What stopped you? Or what worked for you? And after watching this, which level do you think you'll start with? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this series helpful, make sure you're subscribed because I'll definitely be doing more content about books, reading strategies, and building your literary confidence. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support. And remember, you're smart enough for classics. You just need the right approach. See you next time. Bye.